Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Keyblade Master and welcome to one of my reviews. This time it's going to be on Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. Now I remember back in the GameCube era that the Wind Waker caused some controversy. People were looking kind of more for a Lord of the Rings style game for the next Zelda game, and what we got was Studio Ghibli. It had some overly cute looks with this really cel-shaded look. And I overall enjoyed the look of that game, with the exception of the character designs. I never really did like the look of this Link for some reason. I don't know why, it just doesn't seem like Zelda when they use Link like that. Anyways, Nintendo seemed to be very set that this would be the look of the Zelda series from now on. Nintendo teased that the next game would use the same engine, and they did so implying that we would be getting another cel-shaded Zelda. Fans were floored at E3 in 2004 when Twilight Princess was announced. It was darker, more grittier, a sequel that Ocarina of Time truly deserved. I had to wait a week after the launch of the Nintendo Wii to get it, because all the stores in my area were sold out of that game. Yeah, I didn't know at the time. I should have counted my blessings for even getting the Wii on launch day, because afterwards it became sold out everywhere for almost 2 years. Big difference between the Wii and the Wii U, I guess. Anyways, Nintendo must have had some success updating the Wind Waker HD, because they just re-released the Twilight Princess in HD on the Wii U. So how is it playing an HD version of this classic game? Well, let's sit down and have a look. The story in this game follows a young boy from Ordon Village, just outside of the Kingdom of Hyrule. You get to, of course, name him anything you want. I choose the default Link, of course. Anyways, Link's tasked with bringing a sword to Hyrule Castle his uncle has made. However, before he can leave on his journey, his girlfriend gets kidnapped by some creatures, and he is dragged into another dimension where he gets turned into a wolf. A small imp girl named Midna helps him escape and meet Princess Zelda. It seems like the entire Kingdom of Hyrule is under the realm of Twilight. After a few more side quests involving killing bugs of all things, Link is finally returned to a human form, wearing the legendary green tunic that the hero of Time wore. It seems like the hero of the Tweely tribe will appear as a noble beast, while the hero of Hyrule will wear the green. Guess what, Link? That means you're charged with saving both the light and the dark world in this one. Next, I also happen to save the village kids and stop the evil Zant from wrecking everything. This Link's got a full plate. And of course, he's going to get the most cliched weapon in the Zelda arsenal, the Master Sword. Now, Twilight Princess is probably the most cinematic Zelda game I have ever played. It has some gorgeous cinemas, and it tries to tell its story in an epic fashion. But is the story any good? Yeah, it's okay, but it's not really that great, and in a lot of ways it makes the Zelda timeline even more confusing than the Wind Waker's ending did. Mainly because it just shoehorns in the final fight with Ganon in about the halfway point just to shoehorn Ganon again. Continuity and explanations be damned. And this whole timeline thing wouldn't be a problem if Twilight Princess made an effort to stand out as its own standalone game, but it references Ocarina of Time almost constantly, including you paying a visit to a now ruined Temple of Time to retrieve the Master Sword, and it also has a door leading back to when it was a fully functioning temple, and its opening area looks a lot like the Temple of Time from Ocarina of Time. So that shoehorned villain really makes the game a muddled mess. Not helping is Zant on his own was a really cool villain. You didn't need Ganon. Oh, and to make the game's storyline even more confusing, they never say the word Triforce despite the fact that it pops up almost constantly. Trying to figure out this game's story other than the way that it's presented is more confusing than trying to figure out Xehanort's master plan at the end of Dream Drop Distance. Oh well, on the good news side, this game does have some enjoyable side characters. The village kids that Link has to save and later take to Kakariko Village after you have saved them have their own personality and growth, including that creepy as heck baby who decides to set up a shop. But they all pale in terms as far as overall character and character growth as far as Midna is concerned. Midna is your typical side character that usually accompanies Link on his quests. Because Link himself can't speak, Midna speaks for the player. She is very dry, she's very sarcastic and very bitter at first, caring nothing but getting rid of Xanta and helping her people. Hyrule can corrode into dust as far as she cares, because it's ruled by an incompetent leader in her book. But as she travels with Link and sees Zelda's sacrifices, her tone and mood starts to soften up a lot, and I really enjoyed her as a character, especially more towards the end of the game. She's a fun character, and she's probably one of the more developed characters in the Legend of Zelda franchise. In the end, we have some great characters. The story scenes, for what they are well put together, despite having no voiceovers whatsoever. But the end product is unfortunately a really big, muddled mess, mainly because they had to shoehorn someone in here that didn't need to be shoehorned. Alright, for those who haven't played a Zelda game, it's a dungeon crawler. Your main goal is to find your way into dungeons, complete their puzzles, slay a boss, and get an item and collect whatever MacGuffin the game is asking you to collect. And as far as these dungeons go, while they're a little on the long side in this game, and it can be a problem, especially for two of them, the freaking Water Temple and the Sky Garden can be a really big pain. But for the most part, they're fun and really clever. The items you get in this game, as far as the dungeons are concerned, are a lot of fun. The problem coming from a lot of the items you collect, though, like this gear for example, collect more dust than a Pokemon in a PC after that dungeon is over. There are a lot of items that you just use in the dungeon you find them in and don't use afterwards, which is such a shame because some of these items are very creative in the way they are used. And it would have been fun to be able to use them in more than one dungeon. So what about the overworld? Well, the good news here is that it's freaking huge. The overworld field requires you to basically use the horse in order to get around. It's very difficult to traverse this whole thing on foot, and it's just fun to explore all these nooks and crannies. They're loaded with enemies this time. It feels like a very live world filled with monsters, and it's just a lot of fun to explore. There is a reason why a lot of people put this as their favorite Hyrule, because of just the way the overworld looks and where everything is at. It's just a real fun to explore. As soon as you unlock everything, which is one of the game's minuses, I'll get to that in a moment. If you're wondering what the combat's like, well, it has some great upgrades to the Zelda formula. Along the way, Link can use his wolf form to howl at special stones. While these scenes are annoying to do, it does unlock you the ability to meet the hero Shade, which will teach Link a new moves. These will have to be performed more manually than they were in the Wind Waker, but for the most part they're simple to do, and the techniques learned will definitely come in handy when fighting more powerful enemies in these armored knights. These armored knight fights are a lot of fun, and I wish they had more in them in the game. So what's bad about this game? Well, it takes freaking forever to get started. The opening hack from when you begin the game to when you finally hit the field is 5 hours. Yes, it takes 5 hours from start to finishing the first dungeon so you can actually go out and explore. 5 hours. 3 of these are for the most part some sort of tutorial or another. In fact, it takes just 3 hours for you to get Link's iconic green tunic. So the game opening takes forever, and it's boring. Yeah, once you hit the field and get Epona, the game opens up and becomes quite fun. But until that happens, it can be pretty slow and pretty boring. Starting this game is a real slog. As far as the Wii U difference, not much from what I can see. Yeah, there's using the touchscreen to equip items without pausing, which I thought was a terrible idea. I have to stop and look down at the touchscreen while the game's not paused. What could possibly go wrong there? Fortunately, you can do this with the game pause. That said, they do have a handy wolf link button that appears when you hit the second act of the game that lets you transform into the wolf just by pressing it and avoid having to have a conversation with Midna. I like that button a lot. There is also an extra dungeon that can be unlocked by using an amiibo that comes with this game. It's similar to the Cave of Ordeals. It's basically a enemy rush. You go through a whole bunch of little enemy encounters and collect money the more you do this. It's not a bad extra, and the figurine that comes with it is cool, but it's nothing spectacular. When you compare Twilight Princess's changes from what they did with the Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time, there's not much in a way of changes to speak about. For the most part, this is just an HD upgrade of a 10-year-old game. So how did they do with the HD upgrade? Let's start talking about the graphics. Now, I was impressed when I played through the Wind Waker again in HD. Just how good that game looked in high definition and just how well they updated that game. Visually, that game looked like it could be for this generational console. Not only because of the art style that was in the Wind Waker, but in the way they ported it to HD TVs. They did things like round out a lot of the characters and made things pop a little bit more. Now, I knew they would have more trouble updating some of the more realistic character designs in Twilight Princess. While Twilight Princess does look like a good upgrade to a 10-year-old game, it's still a 10-year-old game. The models do hold up well thanks to some good animation and facial designs, but some of the edges around the characters and the environments still look like they are 10 years old. Really good at 10 years, but still 10 years old. It's a really good HD port, but that's what it is. It's an HP port. I do have to commend Nintendo in doing something really well in this HD port, and that is with the Twilight Realm. They toned down and smoothed out the yellow glow in that area. They now look really good and otherworldly, which is what they should look like. And because of the way the glow worked in the standard definition and just the amount, it was almost painful to look at, especially with my keratoconus, which was in the infant stages when Twilight Princess was first released. Still, playing this 10 years later on the Wii, all I can say is it just really burns my eyes looking at the standard definition of this in the Twilight Realm. It's just way, way too bright. The music in this game is just beautiful to listen to. The overall theme during the day matches perfectly for you galloping around Epona, swinging your sword, and just having a good adventure. The night sun is eerie, but at the same time beautiful. The only music I didn't like would be the music in the Twilight Realm sections. It can be irritating and grating. Yes, I get being stuck here sucks, but do you have to amplify that fact with the music? Typical to most Zelda games, there's no real voice acting in this game. It's kind of an odd mashup when you consider how cinematic Nintendo tried to make this game, that there's no voices to go with the character. But it's kind of typical Zelda tradition, and I don't think Nintendo's going to change that soon. The only character with the voice is Midna. But let me explain, she does not talk normally. Rather, she has her voice that was spoken into, I think, in Japanese, and then reversed and cobbled up and altered a lot to sound otherworldly. Here is what she sounds like. At the very least, it does sound otherworldly, and I do enjoy the way Midna sounds. I think it's really great that they gave that addition to this character, but I do hope someday Nintendo does give us a cinematic Zelda with some real voice acting in it. Anyways, I give Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess about a 3.5 out of 5 if I have to give it a number. it's got a huge overworld, and once you unlock everything, it's fun to explore. It also has some really interesting and fun dungeons outside of that freaking water temple. And the HD upgrade is good, but not perfect. On the bad side, you do have dungeon items that aren't worth much outside of their dungeons. Things like the gear, for example, aren't used once you complete that dungeon. And unlocking this overworld for the first part of the game takes freaking forever, as does starting the game off with its tutorial. Add in when you hit one of these two bad dungeons, I'm thinking more of the Sky Temple and the Water Temple, the game can be a bit of a chore to complete. That does not say that this stops the game from being a good game, it just keeps it from keeping up the momentum of being a really great game. So Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess isn't exactly this perfect Zelda experience that a lot of Zelda fans claim it to be, but it is a really great game and definitely worth checking out. If you own a Wii U, definitely go get it. Anyways, this is Tommy the Keyblade Master, thanking you for watching. If you like this video, feel free to give a thumbs up. And if you want to join my community, feel free to click that subscribe button. I do reviews, blog entries, and editorials all the time on the channel, and I would love to have your subscription. I'll see you guys later.